G'day dudes and dudettes, Robert here with a it's not belated, it's been a while since I've made a video and posted it to YouTube. I've made a video, bloody hell, well that's funny, I've made a video, didn't post it, forgotten what I had made it on. I'll look it up, I'll get it done, because obviously I thought it was important. Anyway, what we're doing here today is kind of just waiting for the reservoir to bleed on the centre block. You can hear the air coming out now. You don't need a tool. I've really started raving on a bit too fast, haven't I? What's been happening is I've been getting excuse me, a error only on startup. Compressor will kick in, light will come on the dash, suspension error light, get the code, I can't remember, C602, whatever it is, A, and pressure raising too slow. And what I suspect is happening is that it's a fairly new compressor, probably 6 months old, legit Hitachi from Island 4x4, so I don't blame it. Let's go have a look at whoops, what am I doing? Stick on a cheap Chinese compressor, because I just wanted one fast. The old one would shit itself. So there's a possibility that it's the centre block not opening. So what I think is happening, and we'll have a close look at that centre block directly. Should have done that whilst I was down there. That when the car calls for air, it opens the single solenoid valve on the centre block. Now the centre block, all it does is allows air into and out of the reservoir. It's the tap to the reservoir, to the rest of the system, including the compressor. So I suspect that that's opening too slow. And the other possibility is that this exhaust valve here is stuck open. But I'm not convinced this is it. If you take this cap off, and I'm not going to do it now, I'll do it later if the centre valve doesn't fix the problem and it becomes this is the problem, I'll show you. But under this cap are two springs and a diaphragm, and this solenoid operates a little pilot valve, I guess. This is normally closed, so as soon as that compressor starts pumping, that's it. It's should be building air, provided this is closed. And this is actually cap off, two springs off, pair of pliers, and this moves up and down quite nicely. Cap back on, air, say put air pressure in here, and this, the other side of this cap, I don't know why they've done it this way. They could have just teed it, say, here. Anyway, you will not get any air out of the exhaust. That goes off to the exhaust silencer. You can do it the other way around as well. Blow air in here, and you won't get any air come back out this valve. So on this old compressor, that is working fine, and I'll bet you on the new Hitachi it works fine. The error, when it comes on, thankfully it doesn't really affect operation at all. The light will come on, compressor will stop, and then after about 20 seconds the compressor will come back on again. And I'm guessing by this stage that for whatever reason, maybe the center block is opening or has opened. Compressor's running. When the lighters come on, let's start looking at this here. When the lights come on, you don't hear the exhaust valve open. The compressor just shuts off. And it's like, well, maybe it's already got air built in. Okay, there you go. Maybe it's already got air in the system, sort of primed. So when it starts up next time, it's going. And maybe that center block is still slow to open, but it's primed from the compressor, as opposed to relying on existing air pressure in the reservoir. Hope that makes sense. Alright, so center block, single solenoid valve, there's the 2 pins. The rear valve and the front valve are 3 solenoid valves in one. So let's say just 1 valve for the left, 1 valve for the right, and then there's a cross-link valve which will send air, connect the either the fronts or the backs, so the left and right hand side together for greater articulation, according to the Landrover document. So here we have one, there you go. So air pressure in here. This is where the I think the compressor connects to. You can see straight through, and watch this, we'll even turn that around, you can see that straight through. That will go off to the where are we? Rest of the car, the other front and rear blocks. This one here, come on, what are we doing? Maybe one's front, one's rear. This one is also connected straight on. So 1, 2, 3, there's no valve in the way there. And here's this valve. This goes to the reservoir. So all you're doing is just opening up this tiny juncture here. So anyway, we're going to swap this out. This was the original one that was on the car, and I was doing some fault finding, and it didn't solve my fault. In fact, all it was when I put this old cheap Chinese compressor on, it was just so noisy. I thought, and it was just running straight away. I thought, oh, I must have leaks in the system or something. But it's not. That's just how. Maybe there is a slight leak, but the new compressor comes on and will run for a short time after being sat still overnight. Must be a slight leak, but the car doesn't drop at all. Can't hear it, and it's so minor that I haven't bothered with it. Anyway, so going to get the old valve out, put this new one in. Let's just talk about that whilst the air is still coming out. You can deflate with a tool, like an OBD2, oh, that's better, or just back these off. That's just going real slow. I don't want to do it in a hurry. Only plastic threads, I don't want to sort of damage the thread by this brass being pushed off the plastic too quick. I've disconnected the compressor cabling. That's very easy to do, just to, because that is otherwise there, and just makes that access a bit difficult. The position of this is on the left hand side of the vehicle, and this is all under the cover that I've removed, which would be 3 bolts. One, let's call it front corner, another one in the rear corner right around the back here, and there should be one up underneath, but I neglected to do that last time. I'll probably neglect to do it again this time too. What else can we be saying? Well, what I'll do is I'll just stop the video, get this block fitted, and I'll probably run it for a few days, see if the problem goes away, and give you an update. Alright, cheers. Okay, back reinstalled. Now, what I didn't show you and mention is that, you might have picked up on it before, that it just sits on these rubber grommets, and you simply push in the holes and pull it down to secure it up and out. It's very clever, works very well. And the other thing, that's why I started videoing the way I did, is when I deflated, it's only marginally, that's not going to work, is it? Marginally fiddly, but you still want to give yourself some more room. So before I deflated, well, I put on some jack stands just on this side. Look at that, wheels come right off the ground. That's the easy way to change the tyre. It's just even with a one jack stand. You could deflate if you have the tool, OBD2 tool is to deflate with the jack stand there, and look at that, away you go. In fact, I'm definitely going to do that in the future. And that is, sorry, just back up, with this jack stand, yours may be different if you have them. You could do it with blocks of wood. Put it in raise mode, extended height. Then I put the jack stand in, then deflate, and this is what you get. A bit more room to work. Okay, let's see how we go now. Good morning. Alright, moment of truth. Do we get the error code come back on? It was nearly almost always appearing before. Start the car, compressor would come on for 5 seconds, say. The error code would come on. The compressor would go off for 30 seconds, and then it would come back on and operate normally. You know, it still had all the functions of lowering and raising the vehicle. No issues really. And we had the code of C602A or what it was, pressure building too slowly. Now, spoiler alert, I gave the car a few runs yesterday and the code didn't come on. The car's been sitting here overnight, hasn't been started yet, so I think this is the real test. Now, I've got the window down. Here we've got the fence there, so that's good. It bounces the sound around back in. But have a listen when I start it, and you can hear the exhaust valve. First thing that happens, the exhaust valve opens, dumps air. Compressor should run. This is not very good viewing, is it? Yeah, and then the compressor starts up, builds up pressure, exhaust valve opens again, dumps the air. How much air it dumps, I'm not sure, because 255 kPa, I don't know what that is in the old measurement. I should look that up first. I think it's a couple £100. This has got a reservoir, essentially a small one on the compressor, and you've got all the airlines. Remember yesterday, we'll still have today's video of course, because I'll stitch them together, but the airlines that run through to the front and rear blocks all directly connected to the straight through to the compressor via the center block. But remember, there's no solenoid valve in between. So that slight small burst, I don't think would dump all 200 pounds. So it only dropped a little bit. And the other question begs is, when it drops air pressure in the first instance, well, there you go, it doesn't drop. That's the answer. So compressor pumps, builds up pressure, has a slight drop. Now I'm guessing the drop is to takes off the load for getting the piston going in the first instance. That's the only thing I can think of. So this is the point of the story about this exhausting. I don't recall the exhausting happening when the compressor first started up first thing in the morning with the old center block. But that doesn't make sense. Why should the center block have any impact on what that exhaust valve is doing or not doing? And you could say, oh, so it was a cheap Chinese eBay center block. Maybe the values of the coil were wrong and upset the module, which is a bit of a stretch anyway. But it'd been on there for 18 months and worked fine. So the values of the coil, it's just a coil of wire. Like literally just a coil of wire, wouldn't have changed. If there was a poor connection, well, it worked fine every other time. It was just the very first start up in the morning. Sorry, not first up in the morning. When you started the car, that's when the error came up. And otherwise the compressor was fine in, as far as I could tell. I didn't time it, but it seems to be about the same with this center block and the old center block. Now the other thing is, I've dismantled the original Landrover branded center block that was on the car that I'd previously taken off, and the seal was quite indented, not to say that it wouldn't seal correctly. The one I'd pulled off, I've also dismantled it. Can't fault, there's no crap in there, nothing wrong with the stem movement, or the spool, whatever you want to call it, movement. You know, when the core comes on, makes I guess a magnetic field and sucks on that spool, sucks it off the seal off the seat. Nothing wrong with the movement, and nothing wrong with the seat either. Just looked fine. Couldn't fault that valve internally. Yet this old one, the original one, as of yesterday, was performing fine. Alright, enough technicalities and carry on. Let's have a look and see how it performs. Cold this morning. Alright, there you go. So you heard that was the air light that used to come on, so that's gone. You heard the exhaust valve open and drop air out. Compressor's still going. I don't know if you can pick it up. It's a rough idle at the minute, and I think I've got injector issues, but that's another job for another day. I've made up a puller. Let's go and have a listen. Here we go. Here you will hear better now the exhaust valve. There's filthy wheels. There you go. So that was not what I don't recall. Maybe I've got memory issues. I don't recall it doing that with the old center block first startup. So anyway, new center block is the bottom line, and solve the problem. Alright, well, next video will be fixing those injectors. I really need to do a leak back test. I think I need to buy a cheap kit, really, and see if I can diagnose. The plan was just to remove, as my previous really shitty injector video, just go through, do one at a time. And I started doing that with the first injector, and then got the leak back fitting. Now what happened? I couldn't get the injector out. Got the leak back fitting off. It was all going okay. Couldn't get the injector out. Was trying to do it cold, mind you. Actually, sorry, I even did try it warm as well. I've made up a puller to get the injector out, but then I'd run out of time by the end of the day. So I just put it all back together, and then couldn't get the leak back fitting back in. I think that's the old O-ring had gone a bit hard and shitty, and I just couldn't get it in for love nor money, and I didn't have an O-ring in my many packs that would do the job. In the end, I got the other one in, but ruined the O-ring. So now I'm worried about if I start doing them, not having the right O-rings. In fact, I'm a bit worried about the plastic fittings don't look too brittle. I was having to put a fair bit of force on it, and it stayed. It didn't fall apart. So what I'd like to do is have a new set of O-rings on hand before I start the job. And if I go that far, well, I might as well just buy in the leak back tester, and that might pinpoint which injector it is, if it is an injector problem at all, to do this job, save a bit more time. Or do I pull out all the injectors to sort of get them unstuck for the next time when I went to go to do it. 311,000k on the clock. It's got one brand new injector, one second-hand injector. So they will need doing at some point, I should think. So yeah, I'm not sure which way to tackle that one. Anyway, alright. Till next time. Bye. Alright, final update for today before I sit down and edit this thing, stitch together. I've pulled the grill off here just to give it a bit of a repaint, which frankly hasn't worked out that well. I have to give it a sand, and hopefully then it'll be good for a top coat. But anyway, now two things. One was on the jacking. Yesterday when I showed you on jack stands, or car stands, it didn't actually work out that well. It's still better than using a jack. But when trying to get it off the stands, should be able to it was in extended mode. I deflated to let it on the stands, and then put the compressor back in, turn the car on, it built up pressure. I should have just been able to put it into, I think, normal height mode. This is my understanding. And when it gets stuck on something, like it would have been on the stands, it should have been able to, it should then go, uh-oh, I'm stuck. Put into super extended mode, so I think it's from normal mode, it's 50mm down or 50mm up into extended mode, and super extended mode is another 50mm. But it wasn't doing that, it just didn't do it. And knowing that, the jack stands were on the, where are we? They're on the left hand side of the car. And the right hand side of the car just stayed down, it didn't even come into, don't even know if it was normal mode, let alone extended or super extended. Up, down, no, didn't fix it. Took the key out of the ignition, stuck it back in, turned it on, and that mostly fixed it. I got the car off the stands. I still don't think it was super extended mode fully. It was a bit weird in the end. Right hand side of the car was still down comparatively, but I got it off, and still, like I said, better than using a jack. Now, second thing, on the exhaust. So when the compressor starts up, it exhausts to relieve some pressure. You think, oh, that's not really a lot of pressure it's relieving. I guess you don't want to relieve all the pressure, because then you need to do a lot more pumping to get back to where it needs to be. But there's not just one, but there's two bouts of release of pressure. So you get a big psh when it starts up, and then you get another relief of pressure when it turns off. And I guess the theory from Land Rover is that what you want is the ability to have a big release of air when you're lowering the car, so it's not so, you want it to happen fairly quickly. But if you'd had one bigger bout of longer time of release, maybe that would seem to be a bit weird or annoying. So it's one short one on startup and one short one on stop, which I guess would equal to a longer one. I haven't put a reader on to see some live data to see what that pressure drop would be, so that would be interesting. But anyway, that was my final thoughts on the matter. Okay, I'll edit it and hopefully upload this tonight. Ciao.